Hey guys, I want to talk in today's mission brief about Israel and Palestine. Let's address some of what we're seeing going on with the protests, some of the slogans, what's the truth behind them, what's a little bit of the history between Israel and Palestine. Is this the Israel of the Bible? Are we called to support them as Christians? All these questions have come up to me in the past couple of weeks, so I thought we'd just address it here. So one of the things I want to talk about is the slogan that we see on all of the posters and signs from people protesting that say "Free Palestine." Free Palestine. Are they not free? Who's keeping them from being free? What does that mean? Free Palestine, the phrase implies that Israel is keeping them from being free, right? When you're protesting against Israel and you're saying free Palestine, it's like Israel's keeping Palestine from being free. Well, that's just not true. If you need to look up two-state solution, if you want to research this further, obviously we're not going to explain, thousands of years of Middle East conflict on this Mission Brief podcast. But essentially, there has been a two-state solution, which means this: Palestine would have a state, Israel would have a state, right? It's like separating two fighting kids. And you're like, hey, you guys go play in this room. You guys go play in this room. That's called the two-state solution. It recognizes Palestine as a state, as a nation, and it recognizes Israel as a state, as a nation. Guess who has rejected this every single time? Palestine has. Last survey that I was able to find was 2021. 59% of Palestinians rejected a two-state solution. Why do they reject it? It's because it requires them to recognize Israel as a nation. And they don't even want them to exist. They don't want to recognize them even as a country. They won't even say the word Israel. They will call it a Zionist entity to keep from saying the word Israel. There could be a free Palestine at any second if Palestine would recognize Israel as a country, and there would be then a two-state solution. So Free Palestine is a statement made of total ignorance. Next statement, that slogan that I want to talk about is this one that we see called "From the River to the Sea," right? You'll see a bunch of people chanting it, signs "From the river to the sea, Palestine must be free." From the river to the sea, what does this mean? Well, the river it's talking about is the Jordan River, and the sea that it's talking about is the Mediterranean Sea. And so when they say from the river to the sea, that is, look at a map, that's Israel. So saying from the river to the sea is saying we want everything from the river to the sea. We want to own all of that. That's a call for genocide. That's wiping out Israel. If you don't recognize them as a nation, if you don't say the name Israel, if you want everything that is currently theirs from the river to the sea, these are, make no mistake, racist slogans. Now, I know that what we hear in the news is we hear these are anti-Semitic statements. Anti-Semitism is a very sterilized way to say Jew hatred. It's hatred of Jews, cleaned up in some fancy wording, anti-Semitism. By the way, I want to give full credit here on today's podcast. Much of my research for today's podcast I did by listening to Alex McFarland and by reading some John Piper, which I disagree with, and I'll talk about in a minute, and by listening to John Farrar on the Cross-Examined podcast with Frank Turek. I discovered this amazing guy, John Farrar. Listen to him. He's extremely knowledgeable about the area. So those were three of my big sources that I just wanted to credit. So from the river to the sea, absolutely racist. It's calling for genocide. Free Palestine, it could be free at any minute. One of the big questions we've got is this the Israel of the Old Testament? Is this Israel? People will say, well, this Israel isn't the Israel of the Bible. This Israel was just created by the UN on paper in 1948. Well, yeah, the state of land, the nation of Israel, was given back to the Jewish people in 1948 after the Holocaust, when the Nazis had killed over 6 million of them. This is when their land was given back to them. This wasn't the creation of a brand new country. This was giving back to them what God had given to Abraham. So check this out. Genesis 12:28. Actually starting in Genesis 12, verse 3. God is talking to Abraham. He says, I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all people on earth will be blessed through you. Now, we know that God gave that land, which is present-day Israel, to Abraham. He said, this is yours. He brought the Israelites out of Egypt, out of the bondage, and put them back where they had been before. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Jacob's name was changed to Israel, and his 12 sons are the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, reading John Piper says that we no longer have to be for Israel. It's no longer their land as God promised in Genesis, because, Piper argues, Israel has broken its covenant with God because they've turned their back on God. Somehow that covenant is now like not binding, and it's not their land anymore. Well, there's a couple problems I have with that. One, it doesn't say that. God never says that to Abraham. He doesn't, when he gives him the land, when he says, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, I don't see a verse following that says, unless you guys mess up, and then if you mess up, all bets are off. That it doesn't say that. So I don't know where he's getting that. The problem is he's kind of lumping that covenant in with the Old Testament Mosaic law. So when we as Christians talk about the Old Testament, we not being under that anymore, it's not applicable to us, the law, that's talking about the Mosaic covenant, the Mosaic law, all the rules, right? The 400 and some laws that the Israelites had to follow. Yeah, we're not under that anymore. That was the Mosaic covenant. This passage where God gives the land to Abraham and says, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, that's the Abrahamic covenant. And that's totally different. There are other covenants in the Old Testament as well that are no longer done away with or obsolete. Coming to my mind is the Noahic covenant is one where God promised to not destroy the earth again through water. That's not obsolete because it's in the Old Testament. So see, there are covenants in the Old Testament, both to Noah and Abraham, that are still valid. You don't throw out every covenant along with the Mosaic law. So I disagree with Piper there. And so does John Farrar, and so does Alex McFarland, among others. So that gets us to the current conflict. All that's kind of some gee whiz theology, but let's just talk about this in practical terms. October 7th of just last year, 2023, was the largest terrorist attack on Israeli soil. I believe it was the third largest terror attack anywhere, and it's the largest in Israel. This is absolutely their 9/11. Attackers came across their border on October 7th and killed 1,139 people, including 695 civilians, and 36 of those were children. Now, you can go on YouTube and watch these videos. They videoed it. It is horrific. I watched it, and it is just gut-wrenching. Women are just being pulled out of cars on the road and just shot in the head. Men are just being shot in the stomach and just left to lay there. Entire families are killed. They're going into their homes. There's a video of a Palestinian man just opening the fridge and drinking some orange juice after he's killed the family, and they're videoing this. There's video of a Palestinian man with a garden hoe just hacking at the head and neck of a Jewish man who's been shot in the stomach and is still laying there alive on his living room floor. These attacks are horrific. Now, here's the thing. They took hostages, okay? And currently, as best as I could find on research today, there's still 132 remaining hostages. So What's the point of me explaining this? Well, here's the deal. If somebody comes into your house or crosses your border and kills your people and takes your sons and daughters hostage, and then you go fight to get them back, now imagine somebody telling you, hey, you need to cease fire. You need to cease fire. Well, no, you don't need to cease fire until you get those hostages back. Palestine could end this conflict at any second by giving back the hostages. We cannot expect Israel to stop fighting while their hostages are still being kept. If your sons and daughters were taken out of your home and being held in a house next door, and you go over there to get them back, and the neighborhood started to tell you to calm down, and you to go back home, and you to have a ceasefire, what would your reaction be? That's right. You wouldn't be hearing that. You would keep banging on that door till you got your kids back. You would do whatever it took. You would kick that door down. That's what's happening right now. Palestine instigated this, came across the border, massacred Jewish families in their homes, has 132 remaining hostages, and they're not giving them back. So when we see signs that say free Palestine, Palestine's free. They could have their own nation state recognized by Israel at any time. They just have to recognize Israel, which they won't do. Then we talk about a ceasefire. There could be a ceasefire at any time. Just give back the hostages, which they won't do. So in summary here, I want to hit on a couple main points. One, Israel is not the aggressor here. Just because they're attacking to get their sons and daughters back. They're not the aggressor. They are the underdog. They are justified in trying to get back their sons and daughters. They are the Israel of Genesis 12 and Genesis 28. That land was given to them by God himself. It was given to them again in 1948, legally on paper. They have every right to be there, both biblically, theologically, historically, ancestrally, as well as legally. That's their land. They've been repeatedly attacked and hated around the world since, you think, the Nazis and the Holocaust. And then I wanted to share this because I've been reading a book about the 6-Day War, and it's blown my mind how much of a 20th century miracle this was. This is something that comes right out of, sounds like it would come right out of the Old Testament. It's like a total Battle of Jericho type event that I think a lot of us who don't know a lot of history may have missed. So check this out. In 1967, Israel got attacked by Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Iraq, and Lebanon all at the same time. They were attacked by Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Iraq, and Lebanon all at the same time. And within 6 days, they had defeated all of them. There's no military reason for this happening. Egypt has a much larger military, exponentially larger than Israeli. They were surprise attacked by all those countries, and they defeated them all at the same time in 1967, the 6-Day War. And then a couple years later in 1973, they were attacked again, the Yom Kippur War. This time they were attacked by Egypt and Syria at the same time, and they won this war again in about 2.5 weeks. We see their divine protection throughout the Bible and throughout history. Hitler couldn't wipe them out. Egypt couldn't wipe them out. Syria couldn't wipe them out. Palestine and Hamas, by the way, Palestine has elected into its office. They voted for and elected a terrorist organization named Hamas. Palestine is run by a terrorist organization, Hamas, that's funded by Iran. And they are very outspoken and explicit in their desire to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. They make no apologies for their racism. They want to destroy Israel. They want to own it all from the river to the sea. They won't say the name Israel. They don't want it to exist. So if you are feeling sympathetic towards Palestine, you need to understand both current events and history and the constant offer of the two-state solution. They have never been for peace. They are the instigators. They are the murderers. They are the kidnappers. They want genocide, and they do not want peace. So to demand an Israeli ceasefire and to accept the kidnappings, that's racist. You would not ask any other race to accept the kidnapping of their sons and daughters. The slogan from the river to the sea is racist. The slogan Free Palestine is completely ignorant. The Israel nation that we see today is the Israeli people protected by God. Genesis 12 is still in effect. God will still bless those who bless Israel and curse those who curse Israel. As Christians, we need to understand our history and our current events, and we need to side with Israel.